Arthur Fleck. He laughs, but nothing is funny. He dances, but it feels like a warning. From the moment Joaquin Phoenix steps into frame as Arthur Fleck, you can't look away, because you're not watching an actor perform. You're watching a man unravel in real time. Phoenix didn't just win an Oscar for Joker, he set a new standard for character immersion, fusing a lifetime of outsider roles into one unforgettable descent into madness. Phoenix wasn't an unknown actor before this. He'd already played an insecure Roman emperor, Gladiator, a country music legend, Walk the Line, and a haunted war vet, The Master. He'd faked quitting acting for a hip-hop career in a film that left people baffled, I'm Still Here. He was known for his intensity, yes, but also for being elusive, unpredictable, even strange. His roles had won him 3 Oscar nominations, but the statue always slipped from his grasp, until now. The process for Joker was brutal. To become Arthur Fleck, Phoenix lost 52 pounds. His diet was so extreme, an apple, lettuce, and steamed asparagus a day, that it caused psychological side effects. He admitted he started to go a little mad. This wasn't a side effect of the acting, it was part of the plan. That instability fed directly into the twitchy, alien movements of Fleck's body. He said it gave him a sense of fluidity, which helped define Arthur's eerie, contorted dancing. That wasn't choreography, it was a body breaking apart from hunger and stress. Then there was the laugh. Phoenix didn't copy any previous Jokers. He studied videos of real patients with pathological laughter, trying to nail the painful, involuntary nature of Arthur's cackle. It had to sound like it hurt, and it does. Every time he laughs, it feels like he's being torn in half. On set, Phoenix was unpredictable in the best way. Scenes were often improvised, like when Arthur dances in the bathroom after his first killing. That wasn't in the script, it was something Phoenix discovered on the day, and it became iconic. The film leans into this chaos, a world spinning around a man slowly losing his grip. Joker exploded beyond expectations, becoming the first rated film to earn over $1 billion worldwide. The controversy over its violence only made it more of a must-see. Phoenix finally won his Oscar, but something even stranger happened. Protesters around the world began dressing as Arthur Fleck. The sad clown became a symbol of rebellion and loneliness. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker didn't just change comic book movies, it became part of global culture. Vinyard. His head is shaved, his chest is tattooed with a swastika, and his eyes burn with rage. When Edward Norton walked into American History X, he didn't just play a neo-Nazi. He turned hate into a ticking bomb and then made you watch as it exploded from the inside out. This wasn't a debut, it was a reckoning. A 2-hour warning shot that Hollywood had just met a force it couldn't ignore, one as intense off-screen as he was on it. Before this role, Norton was already Hollywood's fastest rising star. His very first film, Primal Fear, earned him an Oscar nomination and stunned audiences with its dual personality twist. He followed that with acclaim turns in The People vs. Larry Flynt and Everyone Says I Love You, showing off dramatic and comedic range. He was intelligent, Yale-educated, and deeply serious about craft. But with American History X, he traded versatility for volatility and transformed completely. To become Vinyard, Norton turned down a part in Saving Private Ryan and took a $500,000 pay cut. He packed on 30 pounds of muscle in 3 months, sculpting his body into a symbol of raw intimidation. But he didn't stop at the gym. He rewrote parts of the script, reshaping Derek from a caricature into a tragic figure capable of emotional transformation. His fingerprints are all over the final film, not just as actor, but editor too. That's because the production spiraled into chaos. Director Tony Kaye delivered a bleak, 95-minute cut that the studio rejected. Norton stepped in, re-editing the film into a more redemptive, 119-minute version, the one released in theaters. Kaye tried to remove his name from the film and denounced Norton in full-page ads. But that's the version that earned Norton his second Oscar nomination and turned Derek into one of cinema's most disturbing, yet oddly human, anti-heroes. Iconic moments like the curb stomp scene left audiences speechless, but it's the quiet breakdown in prison, the look in Derek's eyes as he realizes the poison he's passed to his brother, that gives the film its lasting power. American History X wasn't a blockbuster, but it became a classroom staple and cultural touchstone. And Norton? He became legend and lightning rod at the same time, admired for brilliance, infamous for control.
Sorry for stopping your video, but you really should subscribe.
Michael Corleone. Under the soft glow of wedding lights and family smiles, he looks harmless, a war hero, clean-cut, a man with a future outside the family business. But by the end, his stare is ice, his words are law, and his silence more violent than gunfire. Al Pacino's transformation into Michael Corleone in The Godfather wasn't just a performance, it was a trap, slowly snapping shut while no one noticed. Before anyone realized what was happening, a new kind of cinematic power had emerged. Not loud, not flashy, but lethal in stillness. Before 1972, Pacino was a name only whispered in New York theater circles. He had trained under method acting legend Lee Strasberg, won awards off-Broadway, and played a heroin addict in a little-seen indie film. But to the rest of the world he was nobody. The studio wanted stars, Robert Redford, Warren Beatty, even Jack Nicholson, to play Michael. But director Francis Ford Coppola fought for Pacino, who he said looked like the book's version of Michael, cold, unreadable, dangerous, without lifting a finger. The studio hated the early footage. They called Pacino's performance flat, weak, even boring. They tried to fire him repeatedly, but Pacino had a plan. He was building Michael as a slow burn, the outsider, the college boy who says he's not like his family, until he coldly murders a cop and mob boss in a restaurant. That restaurant scene changed everything. The trembling hand, the gun behind the toilet, the 2 shots, and then, the pause. Michael adjusts his coat and walks away. No panic, no mess, just precision. That's when the studio finally saw what Coppola saw, a star being born in real time. Pacino's performance was methodical. He refused to play Michael as loud or showy. Instead, he pulled everything inward. By the end of the film, his transformation is complete. He goes from a quiet war hero to the ruthless Don, all in one film. His cold stare in the final shot, as the door closes on Kay, doesn't just end the movie, it cements his legend. Despite being nominated for Best Supporting Actor, Pacino boycotted the Oscars. He was furious he wasn't recognized as a lead, especially since he had more screen time than Marlon Brando. That defiance became part of his mystique. He wasn't just an actor, he was a craftsman who refused to play the Hollywood game. The Godfather became the highest-grossing film of the year, won Best Picture, and changed the gangster genre forever. And Al Pacino, barely known, nearly fired, became the most feared man on screen without raising his voice. Ellen Ripley. She wasn't supposed to survive. She wasn't even supposed to be the lead. But when Sigourney Weaver stepped onto the Nostromo as Ellen Ripley, she didn't just fight a xenomorph, she annihilated every stereotype about women in sci-fi. Ripley wasn't screaming or waiting to be saved, she was calculating, furious, and outsmarting a perfect killing machine. Weaver didn't just create a character, she detonated a genre. By the time she blew that alien out the airlock, Hollywood had a new kind of action hero, and it had never seen anything like her. Weaver came from the New York theater world. She was 6 feet tall, highly educated, and completely unknown to film audiences. Her only screen role before Alien was a 6-second walk-on in Annie Hall. Most casting agents thought she was too intellectual and too tall to lead a movie, let alone a sci-fi thriller. But director Ridley Scott saw something different. The script had gender-neutral characters, and Ripley could be male or female. Casting Weaver was a gamble, one that would redefine an entire industry. Ripley didn't arrive with guns blazing. She was third in command, quietly observing while others argued. But when chaos hits, crew members dead, an alien on board, Ripley becomes the only one thinking clearly. She enforces quarantine protocol, challenges the ship's chain of command, and eventually takes control when everyone else is dead. Her voice never trembles. She never begs. She survives not through brute force, but sheer competence. The final scene is iconic. Ripley, stripped down to a tank top and underwear, faces the alien one-on-one in a cramped escape pod. But this isn't exploitation, it's tension at its purest. Weaver shows fear, yes, but also absolute determination. She straps herself in, opens the hatch, and blasts the creature into space. The image of her floating alone in silence burned itself into film history. A lesser-known detail, Weaver had to perform all those scenes with a real flamethrower and no stunt double. And during production, she developed a rash from the cat in the film. She was mildly allergic to Jonesy, Ripley's feline companion. But she never let on, knowing her chance at stardom was riding on every take. Ripley wasn't written to be a feminist icon, but that's exactly what she became. And Sigourney Weaver, a complete unknown, became the blueprint for every tough-as-nails female lead that followed. One alien, one survivor, one legend. Ron Woodroof. His skin hangs loose, his frame looks breakable, and his swagger is carved down to bone. When Matthew McConaughey walked into Dallas Buyers Club, he didn't bring the rom-com charm, he brought grit, sickness, and a southern snarl that felt scraped off the edge of death. This wasn't a performance, it was a resurrection. McConaughey didn't just lose 50 pounds, he shed a whole career's worth of typecasting and came back as someone unrecognizable, a dying man who wouldn't go quietly, and an actor finally taken seriously. Before this, McConaughey was known for shirtless roles and light comedies. He was the guy who said, all right, and sold bongo playing beach vibes. But in 2013, he was in the middle of a transformation, what critics called the McConaissance, and Dallas Buyers Club was the turning point. To play Ron Woodroof, a Texas electrician diagnosed with HIV in 1985, McConaughey starved himself to 135 pounds. He did it without a nutritionist. He tracked every calorie with a notebook, eating only vegetables, egg whites, and a sliver of fish. His body turned into a map of veins and sharp angles. But the physical change was just the start. McConaughey dug deep into Ron's psyche, a man who begins as a homophobic bull rider and ends up fighting for gay patients' rights. He studied medical journals, interviewed HIV survivors, and watched hours of patient testimony from the 1980s. He didn't just want to look sick, he wanted to understand what it felt like to be scared, ostracized, and still fighting. The film's most powerful moments are quiet ones. Ron staring into a bathroom mirror, panicking at his lesions. Ron collapsing in a grocery store. Ron forming an unlikely partnership with Rayon, a transgender woman played by Jared Leto. Their scenes feel raw and unscripted. That's because McConaughey stayed in character throughout filming, using his own exhaustion to fuel the performance. Even when the cameras stopped, he moved like Ron, talked like Ron, and thought like someone who knew his time was running out. One strange fact, during filming, McConaughey's wedding ring kept slipping off his finger because he'd lost so much weight. He kept losing it on set, only to find it clinking around inside his boots, or tucked in costume pockets. It became a running joke, but also a grim reminder of how far he'd pushed himself. For this role, McConaughey won the Oscar, but the real victory was that no one saw him as a rom-com actor ever again. Sean Maguire. He sits across from a genius, quietly peeling back walls with stories about love, loss, and baseball. There are no jokes, no costumes, no silly voices. Just a man, wounded and wise, staring down pain with patience. When Robin Williams played Sean Maguire, he didn't just prove he could act, he redefined what people thought he was capable of. The performance didn't shout for attention, it whispered, and the world leaned in to listen. Before this role, Williams was a whirlwind. He had built a career on rapid-fire comedy, manic energy, and characters so animated they barely touched the ground. From Mrs. Doubtfire, to Aladdin, to The Birdcage, he was beloved but boxed in. People knew he had heart. Dead Poets Society proved that, but Good Will Hunting was different. It was still, grounded, human. And for the first time, Robin Williams disappeared into someone else completely. Sean Maguire is a therapist, but not the soft-spoken, cliché kind. He's broken. His wife has died. He teaches at a community college and paints alone in the evenings. When Will Hunting challenges him, insults his dead wife, mocks his career, Sean doesn't flinch. He grabs Will by the throat, but then he forgives him. That scene, as uncomfortable as it is, resets the balance between them. Williams plays it with restraint, never letting the anger override the sorrow beneath it. The most iconic moment in the film, "It's Not Your Fault," was almost entirely improvised. Director Gus Van Sant let the camera roll as Williams repeated the line, each time pushing deeper into Will's defenses. Matt Damon's tears in that scene? Genuine. He didn't know how far Williams would go. And when Damon finally breaks down, Williams hugs him like a father who's been waiting years to hold his son. Williams also improvised the story about his wife's farts, an unscripted moment that left Damon laughing for real. You can even see the camera shake slightly, because the operator was laughing too. That's the thing about Williams in this film. He used humor like a scalpel, never for laughs alone, but to cut through pain and get to truth. What most people don't know is that Williams insisted his character wear a wedding ring, his own. He said Sean's grief needed to feel personal, and it did. Every scene felt like a man still loving someone who was gone. Robin Williams won the Oscar for this role, but the real prize was the silence he earned. For once, he didn't have to be funny to be unforgettable. Jordan Belfort. He snorts coke off a stripper, crashes a Lamborghini in slow motion, and rallies an office full of stockbrokers like a warlord with a megaphone. This isn't subtle. It's a 3-hour explosion of greed, drugs, and depravity, and at the center of it all is Leonardo DiCaprio, grinning like the devil in a designer suit. As Jordan Belfort, DiCaprio didn't just play a criminal. He turned the American dream inside out and made excess look so entertaining it hurt. This was the performance that reminded the world, he's not just a leading man, he's a master of chaos. By 2013, DiCaprio was already one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. He'd done Romance, Titanic, Prestige, The Aviator, and Grit, The Departed. But The Wolf of Wall Street unlocked a different gear. Jordan Belfort wasn't noble, tragic, or tortured. He was shameless. And DiCaprio played him with such manic confidence that the audience couldn't decide whether to cheer or recoil. He wasn't asking for sympathy, he was daring you to look away. The physical demands were outrageous. In one now iconic scene, Belfort is so high on quaaludes he can't walk, crawl, or talk properly. DiCaprio acted the entire scene with full-body spasms, slurred speech, and precision comic timing. No stunt double, no effects. What's even more surprising? He studied vintage video clips of people on quaaludes to nail the exact body language. It's grotesque, absurd, and hilarious all at once, and it's one of the most memorable scenes of his career. DiCaprio also broke new ground with the fourth wall narration, addressing the camera with grinning bravado, switching tones mid-sentence, even pausing to explain fraud with a shrug. It's storytelling on steroids, literally, and DiCaprio commands every frame with the energy of a man who knows he's lying and doesn't care. The scenes with Margot Robbie, making her breakout debut, are just as wild. DiCaprio embraced the improvisation so fully that in one scene, when she throws water in his face, he genuinely slips and laughs. Scorsese kept it in. Even more intense, during a chest-beating scene with Matthew McConaughey, DiCaprio noticed McConaughey humming and pounding his chest between takes as a vocal warm-up. DiCaprio told him to do it in the scene, and it became one of the film's most iconic moments. Jordan Belfort is a monster, but DiCaprio plays him with such reckless charm, you can't help but follow him into the flames. This wasn't just acting, it was a 3-hour demolition derby, and DiCaprio drove like a man possessed. If you're thinking about subscribing, now's the time. I'm about to post a ton here. Thanks, back to it. Alonzo Harris. He smiles like your favorite uncle, but speaks like the devil. When Denzel Washington steps out of that black Monte Carlo in Training Day, he doesn't just enter the movie, he hijacks it. His character, Alonzo Harris, isn't a crooked cop. He's a master manipulator, a street king with a badge, and a ticking bomb in a leather jacket. Washington didn't just go against type. He detonated every expectation about who he could be on screen, and he made it look dangerously easy. Before Training Day, Washington had played heroes, lawyers, soldiers, and civil rights leaders. His characters had edge, sure, but they were men of principle. Alonzo Harris is something else. He's charming, charming, cruel, hilarious, and terrifying, all within the same sentence. Washington didn't wink at the camera or telegraph villainy. He gave Alonzo the swagger of a man who thinks he's invincible and then slowly peeled that confidence away. The most legendary moment, "King Kong ain't got shit on me," was almost completely improvised. It wasn't in the script. Washington delivered it with so much fire that the crew broke into applause. That line didn't just define Alonzo, it became one of the most quoted in modern film history. But it's the build-up to that explosion that really shows the genius of the performance. Washington plays the long game, turning everyday conversations into mind games, always staying one step ahead of both Jake, played by Ethan Hawke, and the audience. Washington also worked closely with real LAPD officers and gang members to study their language, posture, and street presence. He visited neighborhoods, hung out with local players, and studied how power was communicated through tone, pace, and posture. Even the way Alonzo leans back in his car while driving, relaxed, in control, like a king surveying his domain, was a conscious choice. Washington wore his own jewelry in the film. The flashy rings, bracelets, and chains were personal items he felt gave Alonzo a sense of swagger and menace. And that 1979 Chevy Monte Carlo, Washington picked it. He said it was the kind of car a guy like Alonzo would drive, a ride that says, "I run this block." The role won Denzel his second Oscar, but it was his first for Best Actor. And it came not for a noble role but for a villain who was magnetic, monstrous, and unforgettable. With Alonzo Harris, Denzel Washington proved he could make evil irresistible, and that's exactly what he did. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and subscribe. I've got a lot more content coming. Thanks for watching.